Some moments etch themselves into your mind so deeply that no amount of time can erase them. For me, it was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. I had just finished cleaning up the dinner dishes when I walked past the living room and caught a glimpse of my wife, Melanie, sitting on the couch, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low, casual, almost indifferent. But the words? They cut through me like a razor. I made my husband open our relationship to legitimize my tiny affair with the boss and have a one-night stand tonight. He thinks he can find someone, but by the time he does, I will have already closed the relationship. A pause. Then laughter, light, carefree, as if she were discussing a weekend getaway and not the calculated destruction of our marriage. I stood frozen in the hallway, my pulse roaring in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to barge in, demand an explanation, make her see what she was throwing away. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped back, unseen, unnoticed. I felt something inside me shift, something cold and sharp taking root where love used to be. If this was a game to her, then I'd play my part too. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Tomorrow morning, when she walked through that door, she wouldn't be the only one with a surprise waiting. Sleep didn't come easy that night. My mind kept replaying Melanie's words, her laughter, so confident, so sure of herself. She thought she had everything under control. That by the time I found someone, she'd have already closed the relationship, leaving me humiliated and alone. She had no idea who she was dealing with. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. A cruel, calculated plan, one that would turn her smug little strategy upside down. First, I made a call to her boss, Eric. Not directly, of course. That would be stupid. Instead, I reached out to a private investigator I knew from work, a guy who owed me a favor. Need dirt on someone, I said. Discreetly. You got it, he replied. Next, I reached out to an old friend, Vanessa. She was stunning, tall, sharp-featured, with an air of quiet confidence that turned heads wherever she went. More importantly, she had once been very interested in me. Back when Melanie and I first got together, Vanessa and I had been on the edge of something. But I chose Melanie. Funny how life works. I texted her. Still up for that drink we never had? She responded almost instantly. Always. Perfect. By the time Melanie left for work, I was already putting the next part of my plan into motion. That night, she would come home expecting a clueless, lonely husband. Instead, she would find me in our bed, with a woman who made her look forgettable. And when she recovered from that shock, I'd have one more surprise waiting for her. The divorce papers. The day crawled by in agonizing anticipation. Every moment felt like a countdown to the inevitable moment when Melanie would walk through that door, expecting to find me sulking in my usual spot on the couch, waiting for her like a fool. I wasn't going to be that fool. I spent the afternoon preparing. First, I made sure the bedroom was perfect, clean sheets, dim lighting, everything set to make the scene as devastating as possible. Then, I laid out the divorce papers neatly on the nightstand. A silent, unmistakable message. Vanessa arrived just before Melanie was due home. She stepped inside with that same confident smirk I remembered from years ago. Her long dark hair cascaded over her bare shoulders, her dress hugging her curves in all the right places. If Melanie thought she could pull this game off without consequences, she was about to get the shock of her life. Are you sure about this? Vanessa asked as she slid her arms around my neck. Absolutely, I murmured, pulling her closer. And so, when Melanie finally came home, heels clicking against the hardwood floor, probably ready to gloat, she opened the bedroom door to find me lying in bed, tangled in the sheets with another woman. The transformation on her face was instant. The smug amusement drained away, replaced by something raw. Shock. Disbelief. Jealousy. I saw her grip the doorknob tighter, her knuckles going white. "What the hell is this?" she hissed, her voice a mix of fury and something else, something she hadn't expected to feel. Vanessa just smirked, stretching lazily against me. "I'd say it's exactly what it looks like." Melanie's eyes darted to me, searching for, what? An apology? An explanation? Some desperate attempt to win her back. She'd get none of that. Instead, I reached to the nightstand, grabbed the stack of papers, and held them out to her. "Since you've been so eager to move on, I figured I'd help speed up the process," I said, my voice calm, controlled. She took a step forward, eyes flickering between me and the papers. "You're divorcing me?" I nodded. "And just so you know, I will be using the little conversation you had with your friend against you. See, unlike you, I know how to play the long game." Her face drained of color. "How did you?" I shrugged. "Doesn't matter. What matters is that you got exactly what you wanted, Melanie. Freedom. The open relationship you were so excited about. Consider it permanently open. For you." Vanessa ran her fingers down my arm, completely unbothered by Melanie's presence. "I have to say, I love this whole revenge look on you," she whispered. Melanie swallowed hard, her lips pressing into a thin line. "You're doing this to hurt me." I leaned back against the pillows, studying her. "No, Melanie. I'm doing this to show you what happens when you underestimate me." For the first time in our entire marriage, I saw something unfamiliar in her eyes. Regret. But it was too late for that now. Melanie didn't move. She stood there, gripping the divorce papers like they might catch fire in her hands. I could see her brain working, scrambling to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't how she imagined it. She had expected me to be devastated, heartbroken. Maybe even begging for another chance. Instead, I had flipped the script. "You're not serious," she finally muttered, shaking her head. "You don't actually want to divorce me." Vanessa let out a low chuckle, completely unbothered by the tension in the room. She shifted closer to me, running her fingers lightly down my chest. "Oh, sweetheart, I think he's very serious." Melanie's eyes snapped to her. "Shut up." Vanessa just smirked. Hit a nerve, did I? Melanie turned back to me, her expression shifting from shock to anger. "So this is your way of getting back at me? Sleeping with her?" I tilted my head, pretending to consider her words. "I thought you'd be happy for me. Wasn't this your idea? You wanted an open relationship, right?" Her jaw clenched. "That was different." I let out a short laugh. "Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same." She looked like she wanted to throw something. Instead, she took a sharp breath, struggling to regain control. "Okay," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "You've made your point. But let's be real here, this isn't what you want." I raised an eyebrow. "Isn't it?" "No," she insisted. "You don't do things like this. This isn't you." I sat up, my expression hardening. "You don't get to tell me who I am anymore, Melanie." That shut her up. For the first time in this entire exchange, I saw something flicker in her expression, something close to fear. "Good." I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, barely noticing that I was still shirtless. I took a slow step toward her, watching her body stiffen. "You want to know the funny part?" I said, my voice low, steady. "I was stupid enough to believe you loved me. I trusted you. I thought we had something real." She swallowed, but didn't say anything. "You took that trust and spat on it," I continued. "You played your little game, laughed about it with your friends, planned to humiliate me. You thought I'd be too weak to do anything about it." I let those words sink in before I stepped even closer, lowering my voice. "But here's the thing about me, Melanie. I don't lose. Her breathing was shallow now, her face pale. I could see it, the moment she realized she had completely miscalculated. Vanessa shifted behind me, watching the scene with amusement. I should probably head out, she murmured, sliding off the bed. She smoothed her dress and gave me a slow, appreciative smile. Let me know when you're officially single. Melanie turned on her. You're disgusting. Vanessa just laughed. And you are predictable. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but not before giving me a final wink. Enjoy the rest of your night. When the door shut behind her, Melanie turned back to me, her mask cracking. Please, she whispered. Let's talk about this. I stared at her. Talk about what? The way you played me? The way you lied? She shook her head frantically. No. About us. About fixing this. A bitter laugh escaped me. Fixing this? Melanie, you burned this marriage to the ground the second you made that phone call. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. Not sympathy, not guilt, just the satisfaction of watching her crumble. You don't mean this, she whispered. You're angry. I get it. But we can fix this, I know we can. I shook my head. No, Melanie. You know we can't. And that's what's scaring you right now. She sucked in a shaky breath. I still love you. I tilted my head, studying her. Do you? She hesitated. And in that hesitation, I had my answer. I exhaled and ran a hand through my hair. You should go. Her eyes widened. What? You heard me, I said. I want you out of this house. Tonight. Panic flashed across her face. No. I don't have anywhere to go. Not my problem, I said coldly. You made your choice. Now live with it. She stared at me for a long moment, breathing heavily, as if waiting for me to take it back. But I wouldn't. For the first time in years, I was completely, finally done. Melanie stood there, completely still, as if by refusing to move, she could stop this from happening. But it was happening. You don't mean it, she whispered. You're just saying things because you're hurt. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. Melanie, you don't get it. I'm not hurt anymore. Her lips parted slightly, confusion flickering across her face. She expected rage, heartbreak, anything but this. You played your hand, I continued, crossing my arms. And you lost. The game's over. She swallowed hard, gripping the divorce papers like a lifeline. We can fix this. I laughed under my breath. No, you want to fix your mistake. Not because you regret what you did, because you regret getting caught. She flinched like I'd struck her. I stepped closer, forcing her to look at me. Tell me the truth, Melanie. If I hadn't overheard that conversation, would you have ever told me? She opened her mouth, then closed it. There it was. The moment of truth. I let the silence stretch between us before I gave a slow, bitter nod. Exactly. She finally looked away, her shoulders sagging. I didn't mean for it to be like this, she murmured. I scoffed. Of course you did. You planned this, Melanie. You wanted me to be miserable, waiting around like some desperate fool while you had your fun. She clenched her jaw. I was going to close the relationship. I wasn't going to keep it open forever. Wow, I said dryly. What a saint. Her face flushed with frustration. I made a mistake. I let things get out of hand, Save it, I cut her off. You knew exactly what you were doing. You thought you were in control. That you could manipulate me into playing along while you got everything you wanted. Her eyes darted to the bed, where Vanessa had been just minutes before. And what, this was your way of punishing me, she spat, trying to claw back some ground. Jumping into bed with the first woman who'd have you. I tilted my head, smirking. Oh, I thought we weren't doing labels anymore, Melanie. Her nostrils flared. That's different. Is it? I asked. Or does it just hurt now that the rules are being played against you? She opened her mouth, then closed it again, fists clenched at her sides. I took another step forward, my voice dropping lower. You don't get to be the victim here. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to keep tears at bay. I still love you, she whispered again. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. No, Melanie. You loved control. You loved the power. You loved knowing that no matter what, I'd still be waiting for you. A tear slipped down her cheek. I don't want to lose you. I stared at her for a long moment. Once, those words would have wrecked me. But now, they barely made a dent. You already did, I said quietly. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I nodded toward the door. You need to leave. She sucked in a shaky breath, her whole body trembling. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem. She let out a soft, choked laugh, shaking her head. You really don't care, do you? I met her gaze. Not anymore. For the first time since I met her, Melanie looked small. Vulnerable. Lost. She wiped at her face and swallowed hard. Fine. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the door. She paused for a moment, maybe hoping I'd stop her, that I'd take it all back. I didn't. She let out a shaky breath and stepped out. The door clicked shut behind her. And just like that, she was gone. The moment the door shut behind Melanie, a strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't satisfaction. It was relief. For the first time in years, I felt light. Like I had been carrying something I didn't even realize was weighing me down. I stood there in the quiet house, staring at the door she had just walked through. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more waking up in the middle of the night, wondering why she felt so far away even when she was lying right next to me. She was gone. And I was free. I walked back into the bedroom, feeling oddly detached. The bed still smelled like Vanessa's perfume, a lingering reminder of the night's events. A night that, just a few days ago, I never would have imagined happening. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. How'd it go? I smirked and typed back. As expected. She walked out. It's over. 3 dots appeared immediately. Damn. That must have felt good. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling slowly. More than I thought it would. Another pause. You okay? That was the question, wasn't it? Was I okay? I thought about it for a second. Then I typed. Yeah. I think I actually am. I tossed the phone onto the nightstand and ran a hand through my hair. The house was so quiet. For years, I had associated that silence with loneliness. With distance. But now it felt peaceful. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a beer from the fridge, twisting off the cap and taking a slow sip. I let my mind wander, replaying everything that had led up to this moment. The late nights Melanie had spent working. The way she had started pulling away, bit by bit, until the woman I had married was just a ghost of herself. The phone call that shattered the last illusion I had been holding on to. And now, here I was. Alone. Starting over. And surprisingly, that didn't scare me. It felt good. The morning after Melanie walked out, I woke up feeling something I hadn't in a long time, clarity. No tension. No guessing. No paranoia about what she was doing behind my back. Just peace. I got out of bed, stretched, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't wake up dreading the day. My first order of business? Making sure she stayed out of my life. I grabbed my phone and made a call. "Hey, Brian," I said when my lawyer picked up. "She's gone. Time to finalize everything." "Good," he replied. "I'll get the papers filed today. Have you thought about the assets?" I had. And I knew exactly what I wanted. She can keep her car and her personal accounts. But the house? It's mine. Brian chuckled. "I figured you'd say that. I'll make sure it's locked in. I'll also send her a formal notice. She has until the end of the week to collect any personal items. After that, anything left behind is legally yours." Perfect. Next, I sent a quick text to my bank to remove her from any shared accounts. Then I changed the passcodes to the house locks. I wasn't leaving any room for her to manipulate her way back in. Just as I was finishing up, my phone buzzed again. A name I wasn't expecting. Melanie. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Then, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up. "What do you want, Melanie?" A long pause. Then, her voice came through, quieter than usual. I don't know how we got here." I almost laughed. "Really? You don't know?" "I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I thought I wanted something else, but when I walked out that door, I realized. I don't." I exhaled, gripping the edge of the counter. "You didn't realize anything, Melanie. You just didn't expect to lose." "That's not true," she argued. "I love you. I always have." I let that sink in for a second. Maybe there was a time when hearing those words from her would have meant something. Now, they meant nothing. "You don't love me," I said, my voice calm, final. "You loved having control. You loved knowing I'd always be there." "Well, guess what? That's gone." Silence. "Can we just talk? Face to face?" she asked finally. "Please." I closed my eyes. "There's nothing left to talk about, Melanie. I'll have Brian send you a time to pick up your stuff. After that, we're done." She let out a shaky breath. "I can't believe this is really happening." I shook my head. "You should have thought about that before you played me." And with that, I hung up. I didn't feel anger. Or sadness. Or regret. I just felt done. And that? That felt amazing. After hanging up on Melanie, I expected some lingering emotions, maybe a hint of sadness, maybe regret. But instead, nothing. No second guessing. No ache in my chest. No feeling of loss. Just relief. She was out of my life, and I was finally in control of my future again. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the early morning sun. The world looked clearer somehow. Like I was seeing it without the fog of deception clouding everything. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Melanie. "Vanessa, so, are we celebrating?" I smirked, shaking my head. Vanessa was always direct. And honestly, I liked that about her. Me, maybe. "What did you have in mind?" "Vanessa, dinner. My place. No pressure." I stared at the message for a moment, debating. Vanessa was fun. She was smart, gorgeous, and completely different from Melanie. She had always been someone who knew what she wanted, and right now, she wanted me. But was I ready for that? I wasn't sure. What I was sure of, though, was that I didn't want to spend another night thinking about the past. I typed back. "See you at 7. Her response came instantly. "Good choice. Wear something decent. I'll handle the rest." I chuckled, shaking my head. This wasn't the future I had imagined for myself. But maybe, just maybe, it was shaping up to be something even better. The evening air was crisp as I pulled up to Vanessa's place. It had been a long time since I'd felt this kind of nervous energy, the kind that made my pulse quicken, the kind that reminded me I was alive. She greeted me at the door with a smirk, her dark hair falling over one shoulder, a glass of wine already in hand. "You clean up nice," she teased, eyeing my button-up shirt and dark jeans. "You said to wear something decent," I shot back, stepping inside. "I take directions well." Vanessa laughed and led me into her kitchen, where the scent of something incredible filled the air. "Homemade or takeout?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "Homemade," she said, handing me a second glass of wine. "Unlike some people, I don't just survive on coffee and revenge." I let out a genuine laugh, something I hadn't done in a long time. We talked over dinner, the conversation flowing effortlessly. Vanessa wasn't just beautiful, she was sharp, confident, and had a way of making me forget about everything that had happened with Melanie. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about betrayal. I wasn't thinking about my failed marriage. I was just enjoying myself. After dinner, we moved to the couch, the mood shifting slightly. Vanessa studied me over the rim of her wine glass. "So," she said, "tell me something. Do you feel free?" I thought about that for a moment. "I do," I admitted. "More than I expected to." She smiled, setting her glass down. "Good. Because you deserve better, you know." Before I could respond, she leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was right. And in that moment, I knew, I was done looking back. The kiss was slow, deliberate, like Vanessa was giving me a choice. A chance to pull away, to decide if I was ready for this. I didn't pull away. I deepened the kiss, my fingers sliding into her hair as she pressed closer. It wasn't just about attraction. It was about something bigger, something I hadn't realized I needed. A fresh start. For the first time in years, I wasn't bound by the weight of a failing marriage. I wasn't drowning in lies, betrayal, or the constant second-guessing of my worth. Melanie was the past. And Vanessa? She was the first step into something new. When we finally pulled apart, she studied me with a small, knowing smile. "So," she murmured, "what now?" I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. "Now?" I repeated, thinking it over. "Now, I stop letting my past define me." She grinned. "Good answer." I smirked, reaching for her again. "I have my moments." She laughed against my lips, and in that moment, I knew, whatever came next, I was ready for it. Because I wasn't the man Melanie had played anymore. I was the man who won. And this? This was just the beginning.